didn't hear a word you said. Not good at all. Okay, let's remember Ronnie England in our prayers. Jean Butcher is here with us this morning, so still recovering, but she got good news on her report, so praise the Lord for that. Jackie Carter, which is Scotty Lashley's cousin, is in Horizon Medical Center, room 112. Let's remember Jackie Carter. Danny Dotson is scheduled to have surgery on April the 2nd. So let's remember Danny and surgery upcoming. And Mike Gunn came home from the hospital on Friday. And Martha Durham is due to come home on Monday. So let's continue to remember Martha so she can recover at home. Is there anyone else we need to mention as far as our sick goes this morning? Anybody new that we need to add? Well, we do have Roger Leonard with us this morning. Roger's from Adel, Georgia. He is the minister of the Adel Church of Christ in Adel, Georgia. And how many years have you been there? 14 years. So, and then he's also the director of the International Academy of Bible Studies. So he's been doing that for a couple of years now. So 2 years, yeah. So let's welcome Roger Leonard this morning. He's going to give us a report, and then he'll be giving us a lesson during our worship hour. Turn it over to Roger.
Does not work. There it goes. I'm going to give you a good morning from South Georgia. Please pray for the people in that area. There are tornado warnings right now. My wife is hunkered down in a laundry room. But at any rate, I do preach for the Church of Christ in Adel, Georgia. We're a small congregation, don't have any elders. We meet every 2 weeks to do outreach for visitors and sick. We have a couple of evangelistic Bible studies going on presently, some of them with young people, and some that one I have with a lady who visited. And also in our school, I'm not doing my presentation on the school, but you can look it up. I'll leave some brochures in the back. We're reaching out all over the world to try to get preachers to work on getting elders in their congregation. That's why we started the school. Now, you may remember the movie that Clint Eastwood was in several years ago, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. My wife and I watched that before we got married, and I got to thinking about that as a title. This has nothing to do with Clint Eastwood. There is good, there is bad, and there is ugly in social media. 25 or 30 years ago, this lesson would not have had much of an application, but it does today. And I'm not sure how this works. It's on, but it's not moving. Somebody tell me how to move this. Okay, it must be dead. How about you just move them for me when I say so, if you can? You cannot? My boat's sinking. We try. All right. I was going the wrong way. So we know that there are many avenues of getting on the internet, and most of us know what these are. I want you to notice some quick statistics. That 3 up there at Facebook represents billion. There are over 3 billion users of Facebook. There are over 2 billion users of YouTube and all these other apps. This just tells us that there are a lot of people on the internet and involved in what I'm going to talk about this morning of social media. When I was growing up, and many of you, I hit 70 in December. I know I look about 40, but at any rate, when we talked about social, we sat down and talked to each other face to face. over coffee, over a meal. Media was what the TV stations did. And usually there wasn't much of that blending, but there is now. So if you think about the impact of social media, the World Wide Web, it's neither good nor bad. It is simply a tool that can be used for good or bad, but in and of itself, it's a usable and good tool. I want you to take this Bible verse now, if you're taking any notes, and think about where I'm going with this lesson. Usually, if I were going to do something like this, I'd take half a day, but I don't have that. Paul would write in 1 Corinthians 6 and verse 12, all things are lawful for me, but not all things are profitable. All things are lawful for me, but I will not be mastered by anything. Now that has an application to what we're going to discuss here. Good uses of the internet, powerful tools of staying in touch with people, and information technology and doing research. It's great for students. It's great for preachers. You can find out a lot of things that you couldn't learn several years ago. And when I talk about the International Academy of Biblical Studies, all of our teaching is online because I'm not buying plane tickets all over the world. But it's a good thing that we can do, and we share that information. It can be used for sharing the gospel. I don't know if any of you have been able to teach someone the gospel through the internet or through emailing lessons or whatever, but the internet is a powerful tool when it's used the right way. I'm not patting myself on the back, but way back when I first got on Facebook, I got in touch with a lady that somehow knew who I was, and she was an unfaithful member of the church. She contacted me through Facebook Messenger. I got her in touch with a preacher in Knoxville, Tennessee, and she was restored. That's not on me. That's just saying the power of being able to make connection with people. The internet can be used for great things. As many of you know, we can put our Bible in our phone. You have several translations of it. And I use my Bible on my iPad a lot. I still like a paper Bible, but you can go in there and look up scriptures. You do searches. It's an instant concordance tool. So there are a lot of good uses for our devices. You can use a phone for home security. I have my phone set up for that now. You can do online banking and transferring of money. That sometimes is risky, and some people won't do it, but it can be done. But there are some bad uses of social media. And when I say social media, I'm covering everything. I'm talking about texting. I'm talking about emails. I'm talking about communication on Facebook or X or whatever, Twitter, whatever, your Instagram, whatever. It can be used for bad things. And one of the things that can happen, it can waste a lot of valuable time. People can become addicted to using their phones or their iPads or their computers, and before you know it, you've been on there for several hours and gotten nothing of value done. I have done that myself, and I've had to back off and say, hold on, this thing's getting a hold of me. And it can also disengage us from real live people. I sent my wife a text before I started, and I said, I was told that you can go to the McEwen Church of Christ YouTube channel and watch this live. And I said, just go search it. Well, that's a good thing. That was something I could do. And hopefully she'll find that. But that's a simple thing. I was listening to something, and I think it's very valuable. How many of you remember having friends growing up, and sometimes 3 or 4? And you had relationships with those people. And you talked to each other, you went places together, you enjoyed the same hobbies or other things, you had relationships But the internet is no replacement for real live interaction with your friends or members of the church. It's not the same. Sending a text message is nowhere near the same thing as going out and having a meal together. And you understand what I'm talking about. But see, when we get engrossed in these things, we don't really have any friends much, except, I have over 3,000 friends on Facebook. You know how many of them I really know? Probably 75 at the most. And these people want to be my friends, and I'm careful about that. But then there's certain people that are my friends. I want to talk to them in person or by phone, because there's no substitution for that, for getting to know one another. I'm going to the lectures at Freed Hardeman tonight, and I told the church in Adel, I said, I do go to the lectures, but I get a whole lot more out of sitting down and drinking coffee with another preacher or an elder or someone like that. And it's live and it's in person. It can also cause one to deviate from godly standards. If you want to find trash on the internet, you can. I don't go to those places. But I've been told that if you want to go to a pornographic site, all you have to do is tell them you're over 18, whether you are or not. This is a very dangerous world, and it has a lot of things that now, and some of our young people know exactly what I'm talking about. And so it's dangerous. It will cause people to decrease in their morals. It can also be a decline of self-worth, and I want to talk a little bit more about that. It can also be addictive. Paul said he would not be controlled by anything. When he was talking about Jesus, he's talking about things that would draw him away from Jesus. Listen to this. In September 2016, an influential blogger and commentator, Andrew Sullivan, wrote a 7,000-word essay for New York Magazine entitled, I Used to Be a Human Being. Alarming subtitle. He said, an endless bombardment of news and gossip and images has rendered us manic information and addicts. It broke me. It might break you too. And so I want you to follow this with me. In the last years of my blogging life, he said, my health began to give out. 4 bronchial infections in 12 months had become progressively harder to kick. Vacations became mere opportunities to sleep. My dreams were filled with the snippets of code I used each day to update the site. My friendships had atrophied. My doctor, dispensing one more course of antibiotics, finally laid it on me. Do you really want to die of the web? And the doctor was not joking. The man was that sick. Now, we're not saying that everybody that gets involved in the internet and working can become like that, but we have to be careful that it doesn't cause us to become disengaged. Now, the ugly side. We looked at the bad, and I would say what we just read was ugly. We saw the good, the potential, the bad, and the ugly. 18 to 24-year-olds worldwide, mostly in the U.S., are the most active demographic on social media. According to Bailey Parnell, only 5% of teens do not use social media. That tells us that 95% do. Now, we're not saying that everybody who uses social media is doing bad things. We're not saying that it doesn't have some potential. It has potential for good, but it also has potential for harm, because you know you can find anything you want on the internet. And you can find people who will support your particular views, even if your views are wrong, and they're out there. They are out there. So I want to think a little more about it. Mental stress and emotional stress. This is real. These older people Probably a lot of you don't have any idea what we're talking about. But our younger people do. They know exactly what we're talking about. And I'm here this morning to try to help the younger people. You don't have to get off the internet, but if it's controlling you, that may be what you have to do. If it's controlling your life, it may be what they call cold turkey for drugs. Just stop it. But if you can work with it and not be so controlled by it or not get involved in things that you shouldn't, then think about some of the stress that people may have. These are studies, again, by Bailey Parnell from TEDx Talks. Studies of 18 to 29-year-olds gave top 3 diagnoses: anxiety, depression, and stress. And these are things that come about by being involved too much. 90% of these people in the U.S. and 70% in Canada on social media. Now, what are the 4 mental stressors? The highlight reel. The highlight reel is something that's out there that vies for your attention, and somehow you get some kind of glorification, some great feeling from it, and it may be you want to be like some singer, some actor or actress. You want to be like some great and powerful person, but you're not. When you think about some of these things, one of the apps that really bothers me, and maybe some of you think, well, I don't know why it would bother you. You know, if you take my picture, you get what you take. But you can buy a tool that will enhance it and make me look younger, take the wrinkles out of my face, take the gray out of my hair and my beard, and make me look a lot younger. But listen, that's not me. That is not me. And also, it kind of gives me a false sense of who I really am. A lot of people don't like their pictures made because they don't like what they see. And I understand that. But these things that are affecting our young people, what is social currency? Well, social currency it's not money. It's something that a person gets by being complimented. Now, I like to be appreciated as a preacher. Not for myself, but to glorify God. But when it becomes about me, that's a whole different story. Oh, that Roger, he said something great on Facebook the other day. Or whatever. And the next thing you know, I'm receiving glory to myself. That's social currency. Our self-worth is not based on how great thoughts we come up with. Our self-worth ought to be because Jesus Christ shed his blood to pay for our sorry souls. And that's what gives us worth. How pretty you are, how handsome you are, how much money you have, or how you think you really are, your value has to be placed by Jesus, not by what other people think about you. Would you agree? You are valuable, young people, and you don't need social currency. Oh, well, he sure is handsome. Or he did, and there's nothing wrong with encouraging people, but when it goes to our heads and our hearts, then we are receiving compliments and leaving God out. It becomes about us. What was it that Paul said in Galatians 2:20? He said, it's no longer I who live, but Christ lives in me. I've been crucified with him. But the internet makes us want to look sometimes, listen, greater than God. And if some people don't know what I'm talking about, you get on there and spend a little time with it. It's amazing. Another one is FOMO, fear of missing out. Oh, now I know when you're young, I'm going way back now, somebody's giving a party from school. Well, you didn't get invited. Get your feelings hurt. Well, more than likely, if you didn't get invited to that party, you probably didn't need to go in the first place because they don't like you. And that's all right. Everybody doesn't like me, and they don't have to. But some people are on the internet because they're scared to death they're going to miss out on something. Well, what if that something is of little or no value? What if it's of little or no value? And so they're afraid they're going to miss out on this or miss out on that. And I'm thinking, I like to know what's going to happen in the weather tomorrow in Henderson, Tennessee. I don't care what's going on in California. I don't really care what's going on in Japan or China. I really don't care much about what's going on in Washington. But my point is, there's some things people get all concerned about, but it's of little or no consequence to their lives. And so they're on there all the time, and they're just scared to death they're going to miss out on something. The other one is online harassment. I don't remember when, but some years ago, it was I don't know what media it was through. I don't know if it was through a text or an email. It's kind of irrelevant, but somehow a young woman was harassed by some of her friends. And you all know when you're in school, people can be mean. I got black eyes from people being mean. And boys get into fights. Have the police there now. But at any rate, you see, there's no police monitoring people harassing you on the internet. Nobody's watching it to protect our young people. And this young person I'm thinking about was harassed to the point that she took her life. Now that's a bit extreme. But I want to say this to our young people. Don't listen to what other people tell you about yourself. You know who you are. And if you're a Christian, you know whose you are. And you're precious to God, and people cannot place a value on you. Now, if you give them reason to believe that you're not the kind of person you ought to be, that's one thing. I want to say this to parents. If you see anything in your children that may be changing, maybe they seem more quiet, more reserved, probably too much time on the internet, but somebody could be harassing your child. But they won't tell you about it because they're embarrassed. You wouldn't believe what they said about me. And I'm, this is Bible. Listen, I'm talking about protecting God's people. That's what I'm talking about. And our young people need to be watched and loved, and if you see a change in their character, say, honey, what's wrong? And be open to what they tell you. And young people, please share it. I tell you what, I loved my daddy. He'd been gone 13 years in August. And I could talk to him just about anything. And my mom too. You know why? They were the kind of people I could do that with. Parents, you need to be the kind of people that your young person is not afraid to talk to. But sometimes they're struggling. And we don't want to lose any of them, do we? And we don't want people hurting our children. It's kind of like the mama hen with her chicks. You don't mess with those babies. But at the same time, if you don't know that this is going on, then you may pick up on some clues. And also the danger of people stealing children. Or the danger, young people, listen to me. You don't have too many real friends on the internet. And if somebody comes to you trying to make you some kind of really strange promise, especially our girls, you be careful. There are people out there that would like to take you out and take advantage of you and might leave you dead. These are real things that are happening because sometimes people are vulnerable. Now, settling disputes. What are some social media don'ts? One of them is settling disputes. If I have a problem with my brother, Jesus said in Matthew 18 and verse 15, if your brother sins against you, you go tell him his fault between you and him alone. Now, Jesus didn't have a phone to send text to people. But I know this, if I want to settle an issue with somebody, something they said on the internet, I want to settle an issue with them, I'm not about to get on the internet and start fighting with them over words or send them a text. So you've got to be one of the worst Christians I've ever seen in my life. No, I'm going to lovingly go and talk to that person and say, what's going on here? Be careful. There are some things that you just don't settle disputes by social media. Don't get on the internet and complain about other people. The same thing is, it's just like Matthew 18:15. If your brother sins, you go talk to them one-on-one. And it's like, well, look, and here's the other thing. I need another 30, 40 minutes, but I'll speed along here. What does it make the church look like when God's people get on the internet and start fighting each other? What does it make the Lord's church look like? And we're already having trouble as it is getting people to listen to us about Jesus. So all those people do is get on there and fight each other. And so be careful with how you settle disputes. And I'll just skip spreading gossip. I think you know what that means. Some others, be careful about sharing your personal data. Accessing pornographic websites. If you know what it is, click it off. Turn it off. Young people do not be posting sexually provocative pictures on the internet. That is not where you get your value. When you read 1 Peter chapter 3, I know Peter's talking about Christian women married to unbelieving or unfaithful husbands, but he says, look, the real person is the person of the heart that loves God. You demonstrate to that unbelieving husband or that unfaithful husband how Jesus wants you to live, and you'll win him. And the same thing is true here. You don't have to show everybody everything you've got to win people. If you are looking for young people, looking for a mate, you look for somebody who loves God on the inside, that wants to serve him. But be careful with this. And I've seen Christians do it. I've seen Christians put pictures, some husbands of their wives, that I wouldn't let my wife out of the house dressed like that. But they're doing it. Again, what does that say about you as a Christian? What does that say about the church when these things are posted? You say, oh, this is not happening. Yes, it is. And if you don't know, you're better off. But some of us do. Now, some social media do's. Share necessary information. Brother so-and-so's in the hospital. This is his room number. So-and-so passed away. We just wanted everybody to know about it. The Adel Church is not meeting tomorrow morning because there's a threat of terrible storms coming through the area, so they text and call people. These are helpful things. My wife posted the note about that on the Adel Church's Facebook page. That's a good use. And another thing, be careful, though, who you share information with. And when people say things to you that hurt your feelings or make you angry, we still have a book to tell us how to reply. I want to have all the good relationships with people in the church that I can, from babies to the most senior saints. And the way I interact with them will make a difference whether I have a relationship with them or not. Treat people with respect. Look at Colossians chapter 4 and verse 6. And this is anywhere it goes, let your speech always be with grace, as though seasoned with salt, so that you may know how you should respond to each person. I can't help but think of the golden rule, Matthew 7 verse 12, as you would that men do to you, do also to them. If you want people to treat you with kindness and respect and give you an opportunity to explain yourself in a situation, then you be the same way with them. Because a lot of relationships have been lost over one text. I'm not talking to them anymore. And you think this is not real. It may not. Older people, y'all probably have no idea what I'm talking about, but the young people do. And they won't have relationships. I remember somebody making a joke that Merle Haggard fired one of his sons with a text, and they were laughing about it. And I think, okay, but there are just some things you don't do with a text message. You go to that person and you talk with them, try to speak with them kindly, and treat them the way you want to be treated. And when you reply to people, you know, you never know what may be going on in somebody else's life that's caused them to act. They are at that very moment. You think about it. Well, maybe they just got some really bad news that their husband's leaving them or their wife's leaving them. And they're not in the best mood. And they may respond to you the wrong way, so maybe the question can be, well, what's wrong? Is there something that I can help you with? And try to be helpful with people. Reply to messages from people that you know. I'm not talking about these people that tell you, like I've been getting, oh, you owe a toll fee from New York. I've never even been to New York. But when somebody sends me a text about something, you don't know whether I've read it unless I tell you. Say, Roger, brother so-and-so is in the hospital. What's my response? Thank you. I appreciate that. I have sent text messages to people, and I don't know whether they see them or not. That's rude. It's inconsiderate. At least say, I got it, I appreciate that. But at any rate, social media has its nuances that need to be respected. But another one I wanted to talk about too is beware of the doctrinal errors that are on Facebook and on the internet, on YouTube. Every false teacher and teaching in the world is on the internet now. And a lot of our people are saying, well, did you hear what that preacher said? And I know full well that preacher is a dyed-in-the-wool Calvinist. I don't want to hear anything he's got to say. I'm just very careful about that. They don't even believe in God's plan of salvation. And there are other things. And so you think about, okay, what's the source? Everybody in the Lord's church may not be presenting the best thing, but hopefully at least we get the truth from God's people. You can just do some searches, and it's a lot of times, here's the thing, those people, those false teachers, brothers and sisters and young people, they're out there. And a lot of our people are too, and they're very popular. When you listen, in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, the Bible tells us in verse 21, examine everything. Examine everything carefully. Hold fast that which is good. Abstain from every form of evil. Check the book. Know the book. I'm sure this church is doing a good job in teaching our young people God's Word. But I also know that a lot of times people don't study outside Bible class, and they get duped by these people, and they're everywhere. So I want to look at a couple of scriptures here before we wind this up this morning. In Colossians chapter 3, if you have your Bibles, and let's make some applications to some of the things we've talked about. When I was baptized at 11 and a half, I didn't know a whole lot. I knew I was supposed to live right. I remember I was at a Bible camp, And I remember going around all week promising myself, well, I won't do this or I won't say that. It wasn't too long. I broke those promises, but I also knew that the Lord would forgive me. And so Paul would tell us, therefore, if you have been raised with Christ, you keep seeking those things that are above. Because some of the issues that are out there are bringing, and I keep saying younger people, there are people my age on the internet that ought not be involved in these things either. But people keep seeking the things below, the ungodly, the unseemly, the things that only should be seen in a married couple's bedroom, and the words that should never come out of the mouth of a child of God, and things like that. You keep seeking those things above, where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God. How do you do it? Young people, please listen to Paul. When I was your age, somebody could say this to me, and I'd listen to it for a little while, and I kind of forget, but over time I keep coming back to it. Set your mind on things above, not on the things that are on the earth. For you have died, and your life is hidden with Christ in God. One day, Jesus is coming back. We don't know when. All I know is that when he does, if I'm alive or if I'm in the grave, and he comes to bring people to heaven, I want to go with him. Don't you? Don't let anything we've talked about this morning get in the way of that. And he says, verse 4, when Christ, who is our life, is revealed, then you will also be revealed with him in glory. There's nothing on this earth that's going to compare with what the child of God will receive in glory in heaven. While you're in Philippians chapter 4, verses 5 and 6. Philippians 4, 5, and 6. We already looked at this again, but I'll look at it one more time. Conduct yourselves with wisdom toward outsiders, making the most of your opportunity, and we looked at verse 6. Let your speech always be with grace, as though seasoned with salt, so that you will know how you should respond to each person. When I was a young Christian, I wanted other people to become Christians. And there's one thing I knew, that if I didn't act like one, they wouldn't listen to me. Another thing is go to 1 Thessalonians 5, verses 16 through 21. If you're taking notes, we may run out of time here. Rejoice always. And in Philippians 4 and verse 4, Paul would say, rejoice in the Lord always. Pray without ceasing. Spend your time talking to God. I know. I can be in this, like this. I've been thinking they're going to invent a new coffin one of these days, and it's going to have a head sticking up out of it, because this is the way people are going to die. But in all seriousness, this is a tool, but it should not be controlling my life. Pray without ceasing. I'm not spending time in prayer if I'm doing other things. Another thing he says, in everything give thanks, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus. Do not quench the Spirit. Do not despise the prophetic utterances, but examine everything carefully. Hold fast that which is good. Abstain from every form of evil. In Psalm 8, and because of our time, I'll just give you the note. The psalmist is looking at the stars, looking at the heavens. And I imagine David had a lot more clear view of the stars in that day, and he looked up there and he said, when I consider the work of your hands, what is man that you're mindful of him? He knew the answer. And the answer is, a man or a woman is made in the image and the likeness of God. And that makes you precious and valuable. Psalm 127. I want to turn real quick to our parents. Psalm 127, and think about it as a role. I know I raised 4 children, and all of them are out of the house now. And I know you can't keep up with everything they do. You ought to have some idea, but even so, you can't keep up with all of it. But you need to set a standard, and Lord willing, we'll talk more about that in the sermon in just a few minutes. In verse 1, unless the Lord builds the house, they labor in vain who build it. Help your young people. Help them to grow in the grace and the knowledge of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Help them to understand that their value is not in the way they're dressed. It's not in selfies. It's not in trying to look like somebody they're not by an enhanced photo or trying to be like one of these stars. You know what? If you did some background study on some of these real beautiful actresses and singers, you'll find out they're some of the most ungodly people on this earth. Why would you want to be like that? How do you think they got where they are? And they're not godly people. I'm not saying they're all that way, but we need to help our young people realize that their worth is in being a godly person. And then he goes on to say, in verses 3 and following, behold, children are a gift of the Lord. The fruit of the womb is a reward, like arrows in the hands of a warrior. So are the children of one's youth. How blessed is the man whose quiver is full of them. They will not be ashamed when they speak with their enemies in the gate. The way we help our children makes a difference in how they interact with other people. Thank you for your time, and I hope this has been helpful.